I was 17 years old when I learned that not every person who calls themselves family actually wants the best for you. Growing up, my father always told me one thing: no matter what happens, your education is something nobody can ever take away. He believed that a college degree would give me opportunities he never had. Every month, he quietly deposited money into a college savings account. He never missed a payment. Sometimes he worked overtime. Sometimes he skipped buying things for himself, but he never stopped saving. He always smiled and said, "One day, you'll thank me." When I was 14, my father was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors tried everything: chemotherapy, surgery, new treatments. Nothing worked. Before he passed away, he held my hand in the hospital. He looked at me and smiled. "I couldn't leave you a fortune, but I made sure your future is protected." He was talking about my college fund. A few weeks later, he was gone. Losing him destroyed me. For months, I barely spoke to anyone, but I promised myself I would make him proud. A year after his funeral, my stepmother slowly started changing. At first, it was small things. She stopped calling me by my name. She treated her own son much better than me. If we argued, she always blamed me. If something went missing, it was somehow my fault. I stayed quiet. I told myself things would get better. They didn't. One afternoon, I came home from school and saw a bright red sports car parked in our driveway. It looked brand new. My stepbrother was outside taking pictures with it. He laughed as he revved the engine. I stared at the car. He had never had a job, not even for a single day. I asked where it came from. My stepmother smiled proudly. "I bought it for him." I forced a smile. "Wow, that's expensive." She nodded. "He deserves it." Something about her answer didn't feel right. A week later, I received an email from the college admissions office. They needed confirmation that my tuition payment was ready. I wasn't worried. My father had spent years building that college fund. I logged into the account. The balance loaded. I blinked, then refreshed the page. $0. I checked again. Still zero. My hands started shaking. There had to be a mistake. My father had saved over $200,000. Money doesn't just disappear. I immediately called the bank. The woman on the phone verified my identity. Then she quietly said something that changed my life forever. The account was legally closed 6 months ago. My heart stopped. I whispered, "What do you mean, closed?" She paused. The full balance was withdrawn by the authorized account holder. I couldn't breathe. There was only one authorized person after my father's death: my stepmother. I hung up the phone, ran home, walked straight into the kitchen. She was drinking coffee like it was any other day. I looked her in the eyes and asked, "Where is my college fund?" She didn't even look surprised. Instead, she slowly put her coffee cup down and smiled. She slowly put her coffee cup down and smiled. I was wondering how long it would take you to find out. For a second, I couldn't even speak. My entire body felt numb. I stared at her, hoping she would tell me it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, she leaned back in her chair as if we were having a normal conversation. "The money is gone." My voice cracked. "Gone?" She nodded. "I used it." I felt my knees weaken. "My father spent 15 years saving that money." She shrugged. "He isn't here anymore." Those 6 words shattered me. I couldn't believe anyone could speak about my father that way. I slammed my hands on the kitchen table. "That money was for my education." She looked at me without any emotion. "My son needed it more." I stared at her. "What? He deserved a fresh start." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You bought him that sports car with my college fund?" She smiled again. "And paid off some of his debts." My heart broke. My father had skipped vacations, worked double shifts, missed birthdays, sacrificed everything, just so I could go to college. And within months, she spent almost every dollar. I ran upstairs and searched through every file my father had left behind. Bank papers, insurance documents, letters, everything. Then I found a small envelope. On the front, my father had written my name. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. "If you're reading this, Double quotes. It means I'm no longer here. Tears filled my eyes. I know life will become difficult, but never let anyone convince you that your future isn't worth fighting for. I have done everything I can to protect your education. If something ever happens to the college fund, don't give up. Success isn't something people give you, it's something you build. I couldn't stop crying. At that moment, I realized my father had given me something far more valuable than money. He had given me strength. The next morning, I went to the police. I explained everything. The officer listened carefully. Then he sighed. If she was the legal guardian listed on the account, she may have had the authority to withdraw the money. I couldn't believe it. So there's nothing I can do? He shook his head slowly. You should speak to a lawyer. That afternoon, I met with an attorney. He reviewed every document. For nearly an hour, he remained silent. Finally, he looked at me and said, You may have a case, but it won't be easy. The legal fees alone were more money than I had ever seen. Money I didn't have. I walked out of his office feeling completely defeated. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to lose everything. I no longer had a college fund. I had no financial support, and I had nowhere else to turn. That evening, I packed a small backpack, a few clothes, my father's letter, and the old family photo we had taken before he got sick. I walked downstairs. My stepmother was watching television. She barely looked at me. Where are you going? I looked at her calmly. I'm leaving. She laughed. You'll be back. You have nowhere to go. I picked up my backpack, walked to the front door, then turned around one last time. I may have nothing today, but one day you'll regret everything you did. She laughed even harder. I seriously doubt that. I quietly opened the door, stepped outside, and never lived in that house again. The first night after leaving my stepmother's house, I slept inside my old car. It wasn't comfortable. The driver's seat barely reclined. The air conditioning no longer worked. Outside, it started raining. Inside, I held my father's letter against my chest. For the first time in my life, I truly felt alone. I cried until there were no tears left. The next morning, I woke up with one promise. No matter how hard life became, I would never go back. I found a small diner looking for workers. The owner looked at my resume and smiled politely. You've never worked in a restaurant before. I shook my head, but I'll learn. He studied my face for a moment, then handed me an apron. You start today. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to survive. Every morning I served coffee. Every afternoon I cleaned tables. Every evening I washed dishes. When my shift ended, I drove to the public library. While other people went home, I studied business books, finance books, marketing books, anything that could help me build a better future. Some nights I stayed until the library closed. Then I slept in my car again. Winter arrived. The nights became colder. I often wrapped myself in 2 old blankets just to stay warm. Sometimes I wondered if my stepmother had been right. Maybe I would fail. Maybe I would never escape this life. Then I remembered my father's words. Never let anyone decide your future. Every time I wanted to quit, those words pushed me forward. A few months later, the diner owner called me into his office. You work harder than anyone here. He offered me a promotion. It wasn't a huge raise, but it was enough to rent a tiny studio apartment. The apartment was old. The walls were cracked. The kitchen barely worked. But when I closed the door that first night, I smiled, because everything inside belonged to me. No one could take it away. No one could throw me out. For the next 3 years, my life followed the same routine. Wake up, work, study, sleep, repeat. No vacations, no parties, no expensive clothes. Every extra dollar went into savings. One afternoon, while reading a business magazine, I noticed a small article about people starting online consulting businesses. The idea fascinated me. I had almost no money, but I had knowledge. So I bought a used laptop, created a simple website, and waited. Nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Not a single customer. Most people would have quit. I almost did. Then one morning, an email appeared. Someone wanted to hire me. It wasn't a big contract, only a few $100s. But to me, it felt like winning the lottery. I worked harder on that project than anything else in my life. When I finished, the client left a 5-star review. Then they recommended me to someone else. Slowly, one client became 2, 2 became 5, 5 became 20. For the first time, I realized something. Maybe my future had never been inside that college fund. Maybe it had always been inside me. Little by little, the business grew, and without realizing it, the girl who once slept inside her car was beginning to build a life no one could ever steal. 5 years passed. The tiny consulting business I started from my one-bedroom apartment was no longer small. I hired my first employee, then 5 more. Within 2 years, my company had clients across the country. For the first time in my life, money was no longer something I worried about. I bought my first house. It wasn't a mansion, but every wall reminded me how far I had come. Every morning, I looked at my father's framed photo sitting on my desk. I did it, Dad. I made it. A year later, a national company offered to buy my business. The offer was worth millions of dollars. I read the contract 3 times. Then I signed it. Everything changed overnight. I became financially free. I invested carefully, bought commercial buildings, started another company. Unlike my stepmother, I never wasted money. I remembered what it felt like to have nothing. Success didn't change who I was. It simply gave me more opportunities. Meanwhile, I heard rumors about my stepbrother. The sports car was long gone. He had crashed it while driving drunk. Insurance refused to pay. The car was totaled. After that, he started another business. It failed. Then another. It failed too. Every time he lost money, my stepmother blamed someone else. Never him. One afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call. It was an old neighbor. You probably haven't heard. Your stepmother lost the house. I stayed silent. The neighbor continued. They couldn't keep up with the mortgage. The bank foreclosed. I looked out the window of my office. For a moment, I remembered the day she laughed at me. You'll be back. You have nowhere to go. Now, she had nowhere to go. Months passed. I didn't think much about it. My life was busy. New business, new opportunities, new goals. Then one rainy evening, someone knocked on my front door. I wasn't expecting visitors. I opened the door and froze. Standing in front of me was my stepmother. She looked completely different. Her expensive clothes were gone. Her hair was messy. Her face looked exhausted. Behind her, my stepbrother stood with 2 old suitcases. Neither of them said a word. For several seconds, we simply stared at each other. Then, my stepmother finally spoke. I need your help. The same woman who stole my future, who laughed while spending my college fund, who told me I would never succeed, was now standing at my front door, asking me to save her. For the first time in 12 years, the tables had turned, and what happened next would change all of our lives forever. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Rain continued falling behind them. My stepmother lowered her eyes. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but we have nowhere else to go. I looked at the 2 suitcases beside her. Everything she had built by taking from others was gone. The expensive jewelry, the luxury furniture, the house she chose over my future. None of it remained. My stepbrother finally spoke. I'm sorry. It was the first time I had ever heard those words from him, but apologies don't erase 12 years of pain. I stepped outside and quietly closed the front door behind me. I want the truth. No excuses. No lies. My stepmother started crying. She admitted everything. After my father died, she believed the college fund should belong to her family. She convinced herself that her son deserved it more. She spent almost every dollar. The sports car, his debts, luxury vacations, designer furniture. Within 3 years, every penny my father had saved was gone. Then the debt started. Credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage. Everything collapsed. My stepbrother looked at the ground. I kept asking for money. I never asked where it came from. I thought Mom had savings. He wiped tears from his face. I ruined both our lives. For the first time, I saw genuine regret. Not fear, not excuses. Regret. My stepmother reached into her purse. She carefully removed something wrapped in a cloth. She handed it to me. It was my father's watch. The same watch he wore every single day. The watch I thought had been sold years ago. I couldn't sell this. It reminded me of what I did. My hands began shaking. I held the watch tightly. It felt like a small part of my father had finally come home. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I only wanted to tell you. You were the child he was always proud of. I closed my eyes. For years, I imagined this moment. I imagined shouting, getting revenge, making her feel the same pain I felt. But standing there, I realized something. Holding onto anger had already taken enough from me. I looked at both of them. You can't stay here. Their faces fell. Then I continued. But I won't leave you on the street either. The next morning, I paid for 6 months of rent on a small apartment. Nothing luxurious, just clean, safe, enough to help them start over. I also helped my stepbrother find a construction job. There was only one condition. No more asking me for money. If you want a better life, you have to earn it. He nodded immediately. I understand. As they prepared to leave, my stepmother stopped at the door. There is one last thing. She handed me another envelope. Inside was a faded photograph. It showed my father and me on my 10th birthday. Written on the back were his words. No matter what happens, never stop believing in yourself. I smiled through my tears. That photograph meant more than every dollar she had stolen. Months turned into years. My stepbrother kept his job. He stayed out of trouble. Slowly, he became someone my father would have respected. My stepmother never became wealthy again, but she finally learned something money could never buy: integrity. One sunny afternoon, I stood outside the university where I had been invited to give a graduation speech. Thousands of students filled the auditorium. I looked at them and smiled. Then I told them my story, not because I wanted sympathy, but because I wanted them to understand one lesson. People can steal your money. They can steal opportunities. They can even steal years of your life, but they can never steal your determination. Success isn't built by the people who never fall. It's built by the people who refuse to stay down. The audience stood and applauded. As I walked off the stage, I looked up at the sky. In my heart, I quietly whispered, I kept my promise, Dad. And for the first time in many years, I truly felt at peace.